Let's get started with the obvious question, Manny Machado, because this guy looks like he's in mid-season form right now. Have you ever seen Manny Machado start off so strong in spring training?
I don't recall Manny ever hitting this well in spring training. I even looked up the numbers, and he had a career average of something like 237 in spring training before this year. And yes, they actually keep track of that. You could find anything on the internet, so it must be true. And we've asked him about it, the hot start. He's got 12 RBIs already, and he says he has no idea why. I mean, obviously the obvious correlation would be, oh, well, he's, going to be a free agent. He's playing the position he's always wanted to play, etc. And he's like, I honestly don't know. He just wants to make sure that he saves a little bit for April, May, June, July, and hopefully beyond that if he's still with the Orioles. But yeah, he's on everything right now. He's squaring everything up. It seems like anytime he makes an out, you notice it and think, oh, the guy's finally slumping. He's off to a fantastic start. We just don't really know exactly why. We can only assume.
Now, Roch, I know the Orioles have outfield depth. I'm only bringing this up because you've mentioned Jon Jay probably 100 times on MASN All Access before. You see his deal with the Royals, 1 year, $3 million, really affordable. Did the Orioles ever check in on him, put any offers? How much could he have balanced this lineup?
The Orioles had definite interest in Jon Jay early in the free agent process. In fact, past years, a couple years ago, they made a hard push to try and acquire him, and just never seems to happen. He's like the Gavin Floyd of outfielders, where he's linked to the team, it seems, every year, and they never end up with him. They definitely had interest early in the offseason, and at the time that they signed Colby Rasmus, I heard that Jay was still looking for 2 years for a total of 16 to 18 million, which is way out of the range that the Orioles and apparently any other team wanted to spend on him. I'm also told they checked back on him within the past week, and his demands still hadn't come down to the point they are right now. I'm not saying he was still at 2 for 16 to 18, but he definitely, according to somebody I talked to, was not 1 year for $3 million, which is what he ended up getting from the Royals. And by then, the Orioles had pretty much moved on anyway. They had Colby Rasmus, but the fact they still kept checking on Jon Jay tells me that they were hoping that this was one of those deals where the guy suddenly kind of falls in your lap. You go ahead and grab him, and you throw him into that competition. Rasmus on a minor league deal, of course. But Jay ended up accepting the 1 year, $3 million offer from the Royals. I think the Orioles felt like, look, we kept checking back. His price hadn't dropped that much, and then it finally did. If he had been 1 for 3 much earlier in the process, they may have signed him. Certainly they had no shot at doing that when he was at 2 for 16 to 18. So it didn't really come down at that point to do we choose Jon Jay or do we choose Colby Rasmus, because that was pretty obvious. You're going to go with the guy who's on a minor league deal where you can get a guaranteed $3 million, not the guy looking for 16 to 18 million. Simple math.
Now, Roch, Nestor Cortes Jr., he's getting the start today against the Blue Jays. How important is this start for him in particular, knowing he's fighting for that 5th spot in the rotation?
They're all important right now. So certainly this one is. It was important for Mike yesterday. It's going to be important for Gabriel Noah in his next start. Anybody competing for that 5th spot, because this is one of the intense competitions. We know 4 of the spots in the rotation. The 5th is still wide open. Nobody has seized it yet. Cortes really does need a good outing again. And, they really like him, and I think he's got an excellent chance of making this club as a 5 in some capacity. If it's not rotation, that would be a nice lefty to have in a bullpen backing up all the right-handed starters. Buck always likes to have the long man being the opposite arm from the starter. So I think Cortes has a really good shot as long as he stays healthy, but clearly he'd prefer to start. They don't really have any other left-handed candidates for the rotation, so it would really be helpful for the club if he could seize that spot to give them that southpaw in the back end of the rotation.
Well, halfway through spring training, is it becoming any more clear who's going to have that 5th spot in the rotation?
Yeah, there really isn't one person that right now that is seizing that 5th starter spot. I mean, Mike Wright's pitched pretty well. I believe it's with 2 runs over 7 innings in his 3 starts. Buck mentioned yesterday the command wasn't quite as good as it had been in his other starts, but he still managed to get out of a jam in the 1st inning and then retired the side and ordered in the 2nd, even after the home run he gave up leading off the 3rd. He got the next 3 batters out. So that showed us something. There was not a meltdown. He didn't let the game get away from him. Cortes, of course, he's been pretty good. They love the way he changes speeds, the arm angle, works quickly, just knows how to pitch, as they say in the business. I didn't just make that up. That's actually a common phrase. But then Gabriel Noah has been a long shot from the outset, and he's struggled. He's going to get another start if the shin's okay. He's going for an MRI today. He has shin splints, but apparently it only bothers him when he runs, and hopefully it's not backing up home plate a lot on run-scoring hits. You see what I did there. Otherwise, Miguel Castro, we're still waiting for that first Grapefruit League start, and it is coming tomorrow, finally, against the Blue Jays. He gets to go to Dunedin. He had pitched there before, so maybe he will actually enjoy the trip. The rest of us won't. So Castro is a guy that I thought might be a favorite when camp started, and he's behind a little bit right now, so the pressure is on him to kind of catch up quickly. But just like with Cortes, I like his chances of sticking on the club one way or the other, because he also could be back in his bullpen role where he's been very valuable. But fifth starter spot, wide open.
All right, Roch, while I have you, I got to get 2 injury updates from you. 1, how is Chris Davis feeling? What's his status? And 2, how is Zach Britton coming along after that Achilles injury?
Here, let me change the background for you. How's this? Is this good? Is it making you dizzy at all? No? Okay, we're going to go this way now. I actually asked Chris. I approached his locker this morning and asked him how he was feeling, and I'm always grateful that it isn't a groin injury. I don't like going up to a guy's locker and saying, hey, how's the groin? Could ask about the elbow/forearm, and he actually said it gets a little better every day. He's encouraged, but he understands the club's being careful. He's not going to play before this weekend, Buck said, at the earliest. And Chris said, look, they're just trying to make sure I'm ready when the games count. And he knows he can get extra at-bats easily. He can go over to Twin Lakes, or they can set up some kind of a B game for him, and he can lead off every half inning where there are no rules. So he'll get the at-bats that he needs. They're not going to take any chances of having it flare up. The MRI was clean. They'd like to keep it that way. Zach Britton, everything we're told is he's still ahead of schedule in that recovery from the Achilles surgery. We're not told how far he's ahead of schedule. We were told one of the doctors said it is X weeks ahead. You can fill in the number if you want to speculate. He can't come back before May 28th, and maybe that would be pretty daring, coming off the 60-day following the surgery. But everything's going really well. He's playing catch, wearing the boot. He's on an underwater treadmill. We should all be so lucky. I think that sounds like fun. And so there have been no setbacks at all, but there's no timetable for when he might actually get on a mound at this point. But everything looks good with him as well. And he's active, he's involved. He watched Chris Tillman's sim game today. He was one of the guys standing on field 4 watching. And he's still staying around the guys and soaking everything in, offering advice if anybody needs it. As the wise veteran, he's just not able to get into games right now.
All right, Roch, big thank you. Good news for both Chris Davis and, of course, Zach Britton. For all other Orioles updates, check out Roch's blog on MASNsports.com.